And so I decided that the first item in this lot of locomotives to repair will be the diesel switcher locomotive. This should be a pretty easy repair job. Should be just revive the motor, polish the wheels, and clean the dirt off the shell. I'm hoping this will make a pretty simple restoration. I'll get into the locomotive here. I'll just take her right out of the box. The box is nice and clean. And I'll set this aside somewhere. Well, this one's missing the bell, but it does have some nice decals on it. This is the pre-painted black shell, and we've got a couple logos on the side, some decals. Looks like it's in fairly good shape. Got plastic coupler shells. This one's kind of breaking apart. I'll have to see if I can do something about that. And the mechanism turns pretty freely. It's not too gummed up. So let's I'll get out my screwdriver and we'll pull this apart. Except for that. Okay, our motor truck is free. Looks like it's not too terribly dirty, just a little bit, well, there's quite a bit of fuzz in there actually, so we'll get this all cleaned up and make it run again. This old motor is not in bad shape. It does run, even though it's full of gum and fuzz and grease. I'll just walk right around my workbench here. So, we'll just do a little bit of disassembly. I don't want to take it too far apart because in a previous experience I had some difficulty with the motor being bent. Actually, this one won't have that issue because of the way the motor is designed. So, but the gear is soldered in place. I don't want to take that off. This gear on the top is Bakelite. The gear on the bottom is actually brass, so that's pretty neat. And it looks like, I don't know how that comes out. So in order to separate it, I have to remove the shaft, which will allow me to, there's a little set screw there. I need to find a teeny screwdriver. Okay, this is interesting now. So I have an extra Varney motor truck. This one happens to be painted black, but it has a little piece of drive shaft on here. And I might actually be able to turn this locomotive into an 8-wheel drive, which would be really cool. So I'm going to see if I can actually do that, but later on in this video. For now, I'm going to just get it running with this power truck. It's quite handy that this has the gear with the thing on it for the all-wheel drive. Alright, and with a little persuasion, the motor and the truck assembly has been completely removed. Didn't take very long once I figured out the trick to it. And I have the motor main piece out, so I'm just going to scrub everything up and we'll get it ready to go back together pretty soon. Alright, I am ready to put the motor truck back together, and I got the wheels polished up on it, so I'll just reverse what I did taking it apart. We'll put the screw in. Alright, screws in place, and then we just need to slide our drive shaft in. And our power truck is reassembled. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare this second power truck, well, this is the second geared truck, to go in place of the non-powered truck, and then I can get this drive shaft put in it. The problem with this truck is that the original set screw is missing, and I found that it is actually threaded for a number 256 screw. So what we're going to do is take one of these screws, and I'm basically going to chop it in half, and then that will allow me to use this screw here as a set screw to hold this drive shaft in place instead of it flopping around. Alright, let's see if we can modify a screw here. Alright, it runs. And let's see, get some oil into the motor here. Actually, I need to get some fresh oil. I'm out. So, and then I'll put some gear oil on the gears, but I'll do that later. Alright, this is ready to go back in the engine. Alright, our switcher locomotive is ready to go in all-wheel drive. I really wish it had the bell, because that's the only piece it would be missing then. So I have converted this to all-wheel drive, as I mentioned, and the only thing I had to do adjust with the all-wheel drive option, well, there's a couple things. One of which was these mounting screws underneath the cab were for the passive truck, which was this brass plate, and the screws are extremely short so that they don't hit the cab. In fact, that is the size of the screws that held it into the frame. So because the screws line up exactly where this front wall of the cab is, so I did two things. One, I made new screws that were just a smidge longer because this new powered truck I added is mounted to a piece of phenolic board, which is slightly thicker than that brass plate. And that means that I had to use slightly longer screws, but not by much. The other thing I did was very carefully ground out a tiny little spot underneath the cab wall so that the screws would have room to stick out without interfering with the assembly of the cab onto the shell. The other thing I had to do was make a new drive shaft. Unfortunately, the original shaft, which was just a hair too short, and so I had to remove it. And fortunately, I just picked up a pack of 1/4-inch plastic styrene tube, and the 1/4-inch tube is just the perfect size. Now I made this exactly 1/2 inch long, and then I used my Dremel to cut in 2 slots so that the pins would fit, and it drives perfect now. Now the only thing left to do is to reinstall the coupler boxes, of which I have one right here. This one unfortunately is broke in half. These Varney plastic coupler boxes are kind of long, but they actually have a neat feature where they're spring-loaded, and I forget the actual term for this, spring-cushioned, I guess, just like the prototypes. So when the cars slam together, they press against the spring, and it has that little springing action that I'm doing here. This is a molded plastic coupler, so these tend to break. You can put KD couplers in these boxes. And then the other thing which is unusual about these is that they actually use itty-bitty brass nails to nail it to the frame. These come pre-drilled with little pinholes, and then you just press the nails into place and it sticks there.